Welcome to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every night becomes a story and every story leads you to peace. If you love calm voices, gentle journeys, and stories that help you drift into dreams, then don't forget to subscribe and let your nights be a little softer. Now close your eyes and let the story begin. Love after midnight rain, it was one of those nights when the city seemed to breathe through rain. The streets shimmered beneath the pale glow of streetlights, and every drop carried a whisper, soft, steady, endless. I'd been walking for hours, trying to outrun a silence that had followed me for weeks. Heartbreak has a sound, I've learned. It's the echo of your own footsteps when no one walks beside you anymore. I turned the corner toward Midnight Cafe, a place that never closed, not even when the sky wept. The smell of roasted coffee and wet pavement mixed in the air, and for a moment I felt something familiar, comfort maybe, or hope. When I stepped inside, the bell above the door gave a tired ring. There were only a few people, an old man reading a paper, a young couple sharing a slice of cake, and her. She sat near the window, tracing shapes on the fogged glass with her fingertip. The dim amber light touched her hair, and raindrops outside made her reflection shimmer. Something in me stilled. She looked like someone I was supposed to meet, though I couldn't have said why. I ordered a black coffee and found a seat nearby, pretending to scroll my phone, but my eyes kept finding her. She wasn't just beautiful. She was peaceful, the kind of peace that feels like music when the world is too loud. When her mug slipped from her hand and rolled toward me, I bent down quickly and picked it up. "Careful," I said, smiling as I set it back on her table. She looked up startled, then smiled, a small, shy curve of her lips that somehow felt like sunlight through clouds. "Thank you," she said softly. I guess the rain made my hands a little shaky. "It does that," I replied. "Makes everything feel heavier and lighter at the same time." She laughed quietly. "You talk like someone who listens to the rain too much." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just don't like silence." For a moment she looked at me, really looked. "Sometimes silence is kinder than words," she said, and turned back to the window. Her name, I learned later that night, was Elena. We talked about ordinary things, coffee, books, why the rain makes people nostalgic. But underneath every word was something else, something unspoken. When the clock struck midnight, thunder rolled far away, soft like a heartbeat. Elena glanced at the door. "I should go," she murmured. "Can I walk you out?" I asked, not sure why I needed to. She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. We walked beneath a single umbrella, our shoulders almost touching. The streetlights turned the raindrops into silver dust, and for the first time in months I felt alive. Halfway down the street, she stopped. "You know what's strange?" she said. "Sometimes you meet someone and it feels like you've known them in another lifetime." I smiled. "Maybe we were just waiting for the same rain." Her eyes met mine, warm, searching, uncertain. Then she whispered, "Maybe." We stood there in the middle of the quiet street, the city asleep around us, the rain falling softly as if it wanted to listen. When she finally walked away, I didn't ask for her number. I didn't even know her last name. All I knew was that something had shifted, something small but real. And as I watched her disappear into the mist, I realized the rain didn't sound lonely anymore. The rain didn't visit for 3 nights after that. And somehow, the silence felt heavier again. I found myself walking back to Midnight Cafe, the same seat by the fogged window, hoping she'd be there. But she wasn't. The table was empty. Only the faint mark of a coffee cup remained, like a memory refusing to fade. I sat anyway, ordering the same black coffee, pretending to read a book I didn't care about. The waitress smiled politely, maybe recognizing the quiet hope on my face. Every sound reminded me of her voice, the soft way she said thank you, the quiet laugh that carried warmth even in sadness. I hadn't known her long enough to miss her, but my heart didn't seem to care about time. It just waited. On the fourth night the rain returned, soft at first, then steady, gentle enough to make the city glow again. I took it as a sign. I walked without an umbrella, letting the drops slide down my face. The streets were half asleep, neon lights painting colors on puddles. When I reached the cafe, my heart sank. It was closed early, the lights dimmed. But across the street I saw her. Elena stood under a bookstore awning, hugging a paper bag close to her chest. She was watching the rain, her lips curved in that same half-smile. I almost called her name, but then stopped. Something in her stillness held me there for a moment, like the world had paused between two heartbeats. When I finally stepped closer, she turned. "Back again," she said, smiling softly. "I could say the same to you," she laughed, brushing wet hair from her face. "I was hoping the rain would find me again." "And did it?" I asked. She nodded. "It always does. It's my favorite kind of loneliness." I hesitated, then said, "Maybe it doesn't have to be lonely anymore." Her eyes flickered with something, surprise, maybe fear or hope trying to surface. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said, "but sometimes the soul remembers faster than the mind." She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time didn't look away. We walked together through the sleeping city. The rain soaked our shoes, but neither of us cared. We talked about small things that somehow felt big: her love for poetry, my habit of writing letters I never send, the places we go to forget ourselves. She told me she worked at a flower shop by the park. "People buy flowers to mark moments," she said. "Love, loss, beginnings, endings. I like being part of that." I told her about my photography, how I take pictures of reflections in puddles because the world looks softer upside down. She smiled and said, "You're the kind of person who finds beauty in broken mirrors." We reached the old clock tower near the river, the one that always chimed at midnight. The sound echoed faintly through the rain. Elena stopped walking. "This place reminds me of my mother," she said quietly. "She used to bring me here when it rained, said the sound of the clock meant time was still keeping its promises." "She sounds kind," I said. "She was," Elena whispered. "She passed away last year." I didn't speak, just held the silence with her. Sometimes that's what love feels like, not words but presence. When she looked up again, her eyes were shimmering, not from the rain, but from everything she'd held inside too long. "Thank you," she murmured, "for listening." I smiled faintly. "Some things are meant to be heard only once. I'm glad I heard this." We stood under the clock tower as the rain turned silver under the streetlights. It was the kind of night that didn't feel real, too soft, too quiet, too full of something unnamed. Before we parted, she reached into her bag and handed me a small white flower. "It's called moon blossom," she said. "They bloom at night and close when the sun rises, kind of like me." I took it gently. "Then I guess I'll see you before sunrise again." She smiled a little sadly. "Maybe you will." And just like that, she was gone again, walking into the rain, fading between light and shadow. That night I placed the moon blossom beside my window. It stayed open until dawn. And even after it closed, I could still feel her presence in the scent it left behind, soft, sweet, and impossible to forget. Days passed, and the city returned to its ordinary rhythm. But inside me, something had changed. I couldn't stop thinking about her, Elena, with her quiet smile and the flower that bloomed only at night. The memory of our walk, the rain, the clock tower, it all replayed in my mind like a soft, unfinished song. Every evening I found myself walking the same streets again, past the cafe, the bookstore, the river, hoping, searching, but she was nowhere. On the seventh day after that night, I finally found her. Or rather, I found her name on a small wooden board. Moonlight Blooms, Flowers and Stories. A little shop tucked between two tall buildings near the park. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped in. The air was filled with the scent of roses, lilies, and rain-soaked soil. Soft music played from a radio, and behind the counter she stood, arranging a bouquet of white orchids. For a second, I just watched her. She looked peaceful, her fingers gentle as they tied a ribbon around the stems. Then she looked up and her eyes widened in quiet surprise. "You found me," she said. "Maybe I was meant to," I replied. She smiled, setting the bouquet aside. "You're persistent. I told you I'd see you before sunrise again," I said, grinning. Elena laughed, a small, musical sound that melted the distance between us. "Well," she said softly, "you kept your promise." We spent the next hour talking among the flowers. She told me how she'd taken over the shop after her mother's passing. Her mother had believed every flower carried a story, one that could heal, forgive, or remember. "I think that's why people come here," Elena said, brushing her fingers against a petal. "They don't just buy flowers, they buy hope." I nodded. "Maybe that's what you give them, hope they can hold." She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe, but some days it's hard to believe in it myself." "Why?" I asked gently. Elena paused. "Because I've lost too much. And sometimes I feel like I'm only holding on to what's left." Her honesty hit me quietly like rain against glass. I didn't try to fix it. I just listened. That evening, as the shop closed, we stepped outside together. The sky was bruised with clouds, the kind that promised another storm. "Looks like it's going to rain again," I said. Elena smiled faintly. "Then I guess it's our kind of night." We walked toward the park as the first drops began to fall. The world seemed softer, slower, as if it was waiting for something beautiful to happen. At the old wooden bench near the lake, we sat under one umbrella. The rain danced on the water and her head rested lightly on my shoulder. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then quietly she said, "You know what scares me the most?" "What?" "Getting used to someone and then losing them again." I turned to look at her. "Then maybe this time you won't." She met my eyes, and for a second the rain faded. Only the sound of our breathing, the warmth between us, and a silent truth neither of us needed to say. When she finally smiled again, it was small but real, the kind of smile that says maybe I'm starting to believe again. Later that night, as I walked home, the rain followed me like music. I felt something in me shift from loneliness to belonging, from waiting to feeling alive again. And when I reached my apartment, I found something at my door, a single moon blossom, resting in a small glass jar with a note beneath it. "For the one who listens to the rain." "Elena," I read it over and over until the words blurred. Then, for the first time in a long time, I smiled into the quiet. It's strange how quickly someone can become part of your days. A week ago, I was just a face in the rain. Now, every morning began with her smile behind a counter of wildflowers and quiet music. Elena's shop became my refuge. I'd bring her coffee before opening hours and she'd tease me that I was learning the language of petals. "Roses mean love," she said once, "but daisies mean faith. Maybe that's rarer." She was right. Faith is harder than love. It asks you to stay, even when you're afraid. By the third week, the rhythm of us felt effortless. We'd walk through the park after closing, talking about everything that didn't fit inside daylight. She told me stories about her mother, the way she used to dance barefoot when it rained, saying storms wash away old memories. One night I asked, "Do you ever dance in the rain now?" Elena smiled. "Not since she left." "Maybe you should," I said. "Maybe we both should." And just like that, we did. We stepped out from under the awning, letting the rain soak through our clothes. She spun in small circles, laughing, the city lights trembling across puddles. For the first time, I saw her truly free, no walls, no weight, just her and the night. When she stopped, breathless and dripping, she looked at me with eyes that carried both joy and ache. "I almost forgot what this felt like," she whispered. "What? To be alive and not lonely." I brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. "You're not lonely anymore." She didn't answer, just leaned into me, her forehead against my chest, and for a long moment the rain became our heartbeat. A few days later she seemed different, quieter, distant in the way a sunset knows it's fading. When I asked if something was wrong, she shook her head. "Nothing, just tired." But that night, when the storm rolled in, she didn't show up at the cafe. I waited for hours, staring at the empty doorway, feeling the same kind of worry that comes when the rain stops before it should. The next morning, I went to her shop. The sign said closed. Through the window, I saw her sitting on the floor, surrounded by wilted flowers. I knocked gently. "Elena," she looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, not from sleep but from tears. She unlocked the door and let me in without a word. Inside, the air smelled of fading petals. "I didn't want you to see this," she said softly. "This is what happens when I forget to take care of them." I crouched beside her. "What happened?" She hesitated, then said, "Yesterday was my mother's birthday. I thought I could handle it, but the memories came back all at once. The rain, the hospital, the last words she said to me." Her voice broke. "She told me to keep the shop alive, to never let the flowers die, and I failed even for a day." I reached for her hands. "You didn't fail, Elena. You're human. Grief doesn't keep time." She looked at me through tears. "Then why does it still hurt this much?" "Because love doesn't end. It just changes its voice." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she leaned forward, resting her head on my shoulder. The shop was silent except for the whisper of rain against glass. We spent the afternoon reviving what we could, trimming stems, changing water, opening windows. Little by little, color returned. When we finished, she said quietly, "You didn't have to stay." "I wanted to." "Why?" "Because you're worth staying for." Her eyes shimmered, half disbelief, half hope. No words followed. Only a quiet smile that said more than gratitude ever could. That night, as we stood at her door, the storm began again. Thunder murmured in the distance. Elena stepped close and whispered, "I used to think the rain only reminded me of what I'd lost. But with you—" She hesitated, then smiled. "It feels like what I've found." I touched her cheek, my thumb tracing the line of a raindrop. "Then let's never run from it." And under that midnight rain, she kissed me, softly, like a promise. The world blurred, and for the first time, it felt like every storm had been leading to this one moment. Morning came with sunlight spilling through the curtains, soft and golden. It had been weeks since the night she kissed me under the rain. But even now, every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel that warmth. Gentle, trembling, real. Elena and I had fallen into something deeper than routine. Some days we barely spoke, yet the silence between us felt full, like music without words. I started helping at her flower shop on weekends. She'd hum while arranging tulips, and I'd photograph her when she wasn't looking. Sometimes she'd catch me and laugh, saying, "You're stealing my soul through that lens." And I'd answer, "Maybe, but only to keep it safe." One quiet afternoon, I printed one of those photos, her standing by the window, sunlight turning her hair to gold. I placed it in a small frame and gave it to her. She held it carefully, as if afraid it might fade. "I don't think anyone has ever seen me like this," she whispered. I just captured what was already there, I said. Her smile was shy, tender. You make me feel seen, even when I'm trying to hide. Then she placed the photo on the counter beside her mother's picture. Now the shop feels complete, she said. It was a small thing, yet it felt like a quiet forever. That evening, as we locked up the shop, a man approached the doorway. Tall, neatly dressed, with eyes that carried too much history. Alina froze. Eli, he said softly. It's been a long time. She didn't speak, didn't even move. I stood beside her, uncertain but protective. Finally, she whispered, Daniel. He nodded. You look the same. The silence between them felt heavier than the storm clouds above us. Then he glanced at me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to see how you were. After a pause, she said quietly, I'm fine, Daniel, you should go. He hesitated, eyes softening. You don't have to pretend. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. And before I could understand what everything meant, he turned and walked away into that night. Alina didn't answer my calls. By morning, the shop was closed again. Worry twisted inside me. I walked through the rain to her apartment, the one above the flower shop. When she opened the door, she looked pale, tired. I'm sorry, she said before I could speak. I just needed to be alone. Who was he? I asked softly. She sighed. Someone from before. We were engaged once. He left when my mother got sick, said he couldn't handle watching me break. Her voice trembled. He came back today just to say sorry, and all I could think was, maybe I never healed from that. Maybe part of me still stands in the rain waiting for someone who left long ago. I reached out, taking her hands. Then let me stand with you. I can't erase your past, but I can help you carry it. Tears filled her eyes. Why do you care so much? Because I found something in you I didn't know I was missing, I said. Peace. And love that feels like home. She looked at me for a long moment, then whispered, You always say the right thing. I just say what's true. Days passed slowly after that. She spoke little, but I stayed close, watering the flowers, brewing tea, just being there. One night, heavy rain began to fall again, and I found her standing outside the shop, barefoot, eyes closed, letting the storm soak her completely. Alina, I said softly, stepping beside her. She looked at me, rain dripping from her lashes. I think I finally understand, she whispered. All my life I waited for someone to come back. But maybe love isn't about who returns, it's about who stays. I smiled faintly. Then I guess I'm staying. She reached for my hand, her fingers trembling in the rain. And I'm not running anymore. The city blurred around us, thunder rolling like a heartbeat. She leaned in, and our lips met again, gentler this time, like two people finally breathing the same air after years underwater. When the storm ended, we sat on the steps of her shop, the sky slowly clearing to silver dawn. She rested her head on my shoulder. Do you think it'll always rain when we need to remember? I smiled. Maybe. But this time, we'll remember together. She closed her eyes and whispered, That sounds like love. And in that quiet moment, with the scent of wet earth and new beginnings around us, I knew that every drop of rain had led me here to her. A month passed since the night she said, I'm not running anymore. The flower shop had come alive again, brighter, fuller, as if even the petals could feel the quiet joy returning to her. We painted the old sign together one Sunday morning. Her laughter filled the street as I accidentally smeared blue paint across my cheek. Now you look like an artist, she teased, holding up a daisy like a brush. I grinned. Then you're my favorite masterpiece. She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. That was us now, small jokes, shared silences, morning coffees, and evening walks. No grand declarations, no promises wrapped in gold. Just love, simple and true, finding its way between raindrops and sunlight. One night as we closed the shop, She sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on the wet road. "I used to think love had to be loud," she said softly, "that it meant big gestures, flowers, and forever words, but now I think it's quieter." "How so?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes glowing in the dim light. "It's in the way you remember how I take my tea, and how you never ask me to forget, only to keep going. Love isn't about being rescued. It's about being seen and staying seen." I reached for her hand. "Then I hope you always see me, even when I'm quiet," she smiled. "Always." 2 weeks later, the city held its annual lantern festival by the river. Elena insisted we go, saying her mother used to love it. The streets were alive with laughter, music, and the scent of roasted chestnuts. Children ran with glowing lanterns shaped like stars, and the sky shimmered in reflection on the water. As midnight approached, rain began to fall, soft, gentle, familiar. People hurried under umbrellas, but we stayed. Elena looked up, rain gliding down her face like tears made of light. "This is our kind of night," I said. She nodded. "The one that found us." We lit a single lantern together, hands trembling as we held it against the rain. Before releasing it, I asked, "What should we wish for?" She smiled. "Nothing. I think we already have it." The lantern rose slowly, glowing against the storm, fragile, defiant, beautiful. We watched it drift until it disappeared into the clouds. Back at the shop, the rain still whispered against the windows. We sat by the counter, surrounded by moon blossoms in full bloom. I pulled out my camera and snapped a photo, her face framed by the soft glow of petals, rain behind her like falling stars. "What are you going to do with that one?" she asked. "Keep it," I said, "for the days when I need to remember what peace looks like." She leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. "If you ever forget," she whispered, "just come back when it rains." "I will," I promised. "Always." It's been a year now. The shop still stands by the park, painted brighter than ever. Every evening, the scent of flowers mixes with the city's rhythm, and the rain still comes when the sky needs to remember. Elena and I built a small life there, quiet, steady, beautiful. Sometimes she dances in the rain again, barefoot, laughing like the girl her mother raised. And I still take photos of her, the flowers, the reflections in puddles, each one a reminder that even broken hearts can bloom again. People often ask how we met. I just smile and say, under the rain at midnight. And somehow I never stopped walking toward her. That night, as I write this, rain taps softly on the window. Elena sleeps beside me, her hand resting in mine. Outside, the moon blossoms open, one by one. And I finally understand. Love doesn't arrive with thunder or lightning. It arrives softly after midnight rain. The night has passed, the rain has settled, but the warmth of love lingers. Elena and I discovered something that words cannot always capture, that even in loneliness, even in storms, hearts can find each other. That love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it comes softly, quietly after midnight rain, a hand to hold, a heart to rest in, a presence that feels like home. As you drift into your dreams tonight, let the rain carry away all your worries. Let the soft rhythm of these moments remind you that peace exists, that hope exists, and that love, real, gentle, and patient, can always bloom, even in the quietest places of your life. Remember, the world may feel vast and heavy at times, but somewhere, someone is waiting to meet you in the rain. And sometimes, that someone may even be yourself. Thank you for joining me tonight. If this story brought you calm, peace, or a little spark of love, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs this gentle moment too. And now, let your dreams carry you softly, as if the rain is singing you to sleep.